Okay, thank you very much for joining us this Tuesday morning for our latest 1 hour workout. And today we'll be looking at the importing data from other sources into Zoho CRM. So I've just put one poll up just now, which is what your experience is of the Zoho CRM. Some good answers there. We've got some good experience now, and that's great to know because we've known most of you for quite a long time now. The next question I'm going to add into the poll is related specifically to what we're looking at today, and it's: have you ever imported data into a CRM, any CRM? Okay, can see really not. Well, it's changing. Some have and some haven't. So we're going to just look at the initial sort of basics of how to import today. And hopefully it'll give you the confidence to do that going ahead in the future. Okay, that's good. Actually, more people have than I expected, so that's great to know. Okay, and the final poll I'll just throw up there. And it's related to, specifically, we'll be using spreadsheets today to import data. We'll be doing some further 1 hour workouts in the future based on some more in-depth importing tools. Okay, and I've got a fair balance between how you've used Excel or different spreadsheets to manipulate data, because it's something, we're not going to show you that today, but it is kind of an essential. It's the main part of how we're going to import data today, is getting the data from a really neat spreadsheet. Okay, so thanks very much for joining us today. I'll just go through the quick intro. Obviously, we're doing Zoho CRM, importing data from other sources today. As you know, both Craig and I do the training. We swap between ourselves, depending on, firstly, availability, and secondly, knowledge. So today, you've got me today for your importing 1 hour workout. So we've done our warm-up polls today, and then I'm just going to do a little introduction, and then we'll look at the different methods of importing data into the CRM, where we have a front-end import. We have a front-end, we'll do an update as well. And then we'll do what's called a back-end import. And hopefully these will make sense as we go along. And depending how successful that is, there's always the chance of some nice little issues to help us on our way in a live demo. But we'll look at, just quickly go over some of the other data administration items in the setup for the Zoho CRM. And if you have any questions, please do post them throughout the 1 hour workout, and we can answer them at the end. And if we can't straight away, we'll follow them up. And then I'll talk about some upcoming 1 hour workouts later on at the end. Okay, so let's look at our CRM. I'm just going to move over to our demo CRM, one of the few demo CRMs we have. And we'll start off with mainly an introduction into importing. And we're going to look at where you do that. Now, there's two ways you can do that. You can do it via the front end, and you can do it via the back end. And if I just drop down to this create lead area, you can see we have import leads here. And this is what we call the front end. So we've got import leads and we've got import notes, which we've never used that in particular. But you may find some data that you want to just import. So that's the front end. And if we go to back end, I'll go to setup, the setup cog here. And you can see if we want to search, we can type in import here. So I can look at imports. And we can do imports via a data migration, it's called here. And this is what we call the back end. So in the setup area. Okay, and in this data administration, we have various other aspects under here that we'll talk about a few of them at the end of the demo. Okay, hopefully you will have this import leads ability. It does depend on your profile and how you've been set up in the CRM. But if it's something you think you should be able to do, and you can't, please do speak to your administrator, and they can set this up for you. They can allow that in the permissions of your profile setup when setting you up as a user. Okay, so now the first other thing I'm going to go do, I'll just quickly stop sharing this single screen because we're going to have to look at some spreadsheets. So I'm going to just now open my full screen so you'll see the full chaos of the screen. I'll do my entire screen and share. And I just want to show you some spreadsheets that I have. And I'll just start off by discussing these spreadsheets. I'll just increase the size of that. They may be quite small. One of the keys to importing data, and we'll be going to do it mainly from spreadsheets today, and we'll have a quick look at other CRMs. However, what we really want to do is get some really cleansed spreadsheets pulled in. Now, it often can take quite a bit of work. You might get a really scruffy looking set of data that's been pulled from another CRM or some other system, and it really is good to try and get it into a really neat format. Obviously, for the purposes of today, I have got some mock data that's been downloaded, and I've specifically set up these field names, these headers across the top. And really, these need to match what you have within your CRM. Now, as part of this, we don't need the ID. We're doing the front-end import. We won't need the ID field. However, when we do the back-end import and have two files imported at one time, we'll need to match them together, and that will come obvious. So we need the ID for that. But for front-end, we really just want to make sure we've got fields here that we can marry up with existing fields within the CRM. Although there is a method of creating brand new fields from a spreadsheet as you do the import. And if we have a time, we'll cover that as well. So what we quite often see is, quite often we do get this data quite neatly done, the email and the phone, but often we have address fields as well, and they can be quite chaotic. We have city and county fields that are in address number 2, or, it does take a bit of time to cleanse them. And sometimes we do have a relationship with a company that specialize in data cleansing and have automated processes that do that. So if you do come across some large files that need tidied up, we can get them done for you. But ideally, we want it in a really neat format before we start. So this is going to be an import into our leads module. We're going to do an update into the leads module with a new an extra field called annual revenue. And then we've got a contacts backend CSV and a company backend, and that's what we'll do with the when we're importing the backend data, and we'll do two files at once. Okay, so let's look at importing the leads. We're just going to go straight into importing leads. We've looked at the spreadsheet, and this lead spreadsheet here, we've got 100 records listed, and they've all got these fields: first name, last name, email, phone, and company. Okay, so let's drop down. Don't look at create lead. We want to click the arrow, the drop down arrow next to it, and we want to select import leads. And then this immediately takes you to the next screen, which is the import leads front page. And simply we want to go and browse to that file that we've got sitting probably on our PC or on our cloud share. And just before I do that, I just want to highlight these limitations that we have. So you can use XLS, XLSX, etc. And CSV it mentions. And we normally recommend a CSV. I always like to use CSV because it's just unhindered. It's a basic flat file with no sort of other manipulation or chances of any incorrect data in the background being added. And by that I mean just there's different functionality that Excel can provide, and it can skew some of the data and the way it sits. So let's click browse, and I'm going to browse out of it could be in my downloads file. I'm just going to browse to the training folder that I've got, our target cloud, and our end user training, and our one of workouts. And I've got some import files here. That's where they sit here. So in this case, I'm going to select leads new. I'll just click open. I could double click, and it says the file is uploaded successfully. Okay, so that's good. Now the next thing, obviously, we just jumped through to the next section we have. And here we've got a decision point, as it's called. Do we want to add these just as brand new leads? In this case, I will, because I know that they don't exist already within this demo CRM. However, if we did have a new spreadsheet that you recognize has contained some data that you've already pulled in from elsewhere, it's already in the CRM, you could actually just say update existing leads, or both. So add new leads or update existing leads. So you may have extra data on a lead or a record, or we could decide to skip existing leads. Now, this is often quite a good one to do if you do know you have some leads that are already in the CRM, but are part of the imported file you're bringing in. You could choose to skip based on lead ID, and quite often it's mainly email. Email is a real index field in here, and it will recognize the email address and skip adding it. Okay, so that's a decision point, and we'll be using that in the update example we do. In this case, though, I just want to add as new leads. So I'll click next. And this is where let's just come out. Yeah, and this is where we have the field mapping, as it's called. So what we want to do is map fields that are in the file. So they're in the CSV. And we want to map them to fields in Zoho CRM. Now, this is looking a bit too neat. It doesn't always happen like this. It's already mapped these fields. And that's because the field name in the header file matches the name of the field in the Zoho CRM. So quite often that doesn't happen. You may have a telephone written in the fields in the file, and so you'll have to drop down and select that. And you can drop down and you could start typing the name of the field that you know is in the CRM, and it would appear, and you select that. For example, we do this on ID. We're not going to use ID in this front-end import, but you just start typing in some details of the field that you know it should map to. But this one, we're not mapping ID. And then sometimes I do recommend, I must say, I prefer to rename the header in the spreadsheet to match the field name before I import, because it just makes me pretty confident I'm going to map it correctly. Okay, so that's the fields map for us. Next part is to look at this tab called Assign Default Value. And this is really useful, and I definitely recommend you do this. What we want to do, we can actually set up some default values, such as assigning it to a particular user in here as part of the process. Although the first thing we always like to do is to add a tag, and hopefully you know what a tag is, where we can just add a little note to a record to help us in searching it for it at a later date, or recognizing it where it came from, or some vital information about it. And doing it in the import means we can create views, we can use the tag to find this data, and essentially we'll be able to find all the fields, all the records that we imported on a particular time with this tag. So this tag, I'm going to start adding in. So I want a new tag. It's listing some tags already in the leads module here. But I want to say, I'll just give it 1 hour workout April. I'll just change that back to 1. Select that tag, and it's now added that in there as a default value. But I want to add another one. So let's say we can pick these fields, and I can choose which field I want to do. So I'm going to assign this to a particular owner. So they're all going to, I'm importing this under the name Duncan Weller, but I'm going to actually assign these all to Craig. Okay, so all those records will go to Craig. And there can be other, you can actually add some other default values in there. And I think we'll just keep that at a tag for 1 hour workout, and then a lead owner as Craig Shelley. Okay, so we'll just click next. Now, it was warning me that one of the fields aren't mapped, but that's okay. It's just a warning. It's the ID field. Sometimes you may have to map fields that you haven't mapped already, and then this is something that comes up quite often. If you have a mandatory field within your CRM and or your module and you're importing the data without that mandatory field in the data, the import will fail. So what we recommend is you check your mandatory fields before you import, if you're aware of them, and then make them, just set them to be not mandatory. Now I'll quickly just show you what I mean. I'll just go back, I'll just access our CRM in a different tab. I'll show you what I mean by that. To go to setup, if I go to modules and fields and go into our leads module layout, so you may or may not have gone into here. So we're looking in the back end, how you build the CRM here. And you can see we've got a last name, which is a mandatory field. Company is a mandatory field, okay? But if I had a file that didn't have the company name in, you'd want to edit this and tick it and mark as not required. So I would untick that and set it to not mark as required. Okay, so I'll just check the CSV file that we're going to bring in. So there is a company name there. So I'm happy that it stays as mandatory. Okay, but do remember to go back and make it mandatory again. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that, come back to the import, and I'm going to say yes, continue. I'm just checking there, see if there was any Q&A. And now it moves us, I've said yes, continue. We could use some assignment rules. We don't have any built into this CRM, but we could use that to select some assignment rules. That's where you may get particular types of leads come in or records come in, and something about them allows you to assign them to particular users. But we could actually assign follow-up tasks. So I'm going to make sure a task is created for each of these. And this one here, it usually is provided as a standard out of the box task. It's follow up the lead's last name, so to say follow up the surname, say Scott, and it'll provide the company name in the task. So I'm just simply going to assign this, set up a task. So every record import will have a task set up for it. And then we've got some advanced things here. This is lead approval. So often you have an admin function where leads need to be approved before they're passed on to users, and you could actually enable that. We're not going to do that just now. I'm then going to select finish, and it's scheduled to import. We'll just wait a little second here. That'll disappear, and the imported successfully hopefully will appear in the bottom right hand side. Maybe take a couple of minutes. So what I can do, if you can get impatient, and I could refresh this page. So I'll just do that anyway to see if the leads have come in before we've got the have not come in yet. So hopefully that is doing the import. There we go. So we've got this import status in the bottom right hand side. Leads imported successfully from the file. And if I select this, you can see it's a hyperlink. If I select that, it will open, and it will just show all the basically summary of the import. So thankfully, it's added 100 records. 0 have been updated because we're not doing an update, and 0 have been skipped. If some had been skipped, you get what is called a skip report, and you download that as a CSV file, and it'll give you basically a reason why. And quite often you might find it is because email already exists, or there's some error in the data. Maybe a phone field has text in it, for example. It wouldn't accept that. Okay, so we've got this successfully. We could undo this immediately if we weren't happy with it. So that's often a backup if you feel something's not quite right, and you can also always do an undo, and I'll show you can do that in the setup area as well. So I'll close this, and I will refresh this page, and hopefully we'll have all our new leads that have arrived. And there we have them. So all these leads, there should be 100 new ones. There's the page of 100 here. So that should be all of them. And you can see the green ribbon, and that's the task that's been created. So just before I go any further, I'm going to actually create a custom view based on these. So new custom view. I'm going to say give it a name, and then we're going to use this view later just for ease. And I'm going to add in the full name. Just double click, search for that, double click, and then I can delete the first name and last name. We've got company, email, I'll add phone in. And I'm also going to add annual revenue in because we're going to import that as an update. Let me just check the file. So we have first name, last name, email, phone, and company. So that's the view I want to create. I'll select it for everyone. And I'll just click, oh, I've not even done the filter, sorry, the tag. The reason is why I put a tag in. The tag is the 1 hour workout April. So if I save that, we've now created, we've segmented the data, and we've got a view specifically showing us the spreadsheet that we've imported. Okay, so that's done. We've done that import. And just to show you while I'm remembering, we'll go to setup. It is in the data administration import, or you could start typing import. If I type in import here and look at the import history, we can see there's been an update. The leads have been imported. So that's really useful, this import history. And again, we can undo that, but we can only undo that for 7 days. So this summary is only available for 7 days. It will give you a smaller summary, but you won't be able to undo it after 7 days. Okay, so that's just done the sort of front end import of new leads. And now we want to, I'll just go into one of those leads actually before we move on. And I'll just show you, there's the data that we've got here and the timeline. Showing you the task that's been updated. And we've got the tag up here. Okay, so let's say we have now been provided with some extra information based on that same spreadsheet. So in effect, I've got a spreadsheet that's got an extra field in here which exists in the CRM called annual revenue. And I want to pull these numbers in. Okay, so there's the annual revenue column that I added based on the field. So now I want to do an update. So I've created the view. Before I actually do the import, I'll just show you something else we could do to update. So we've got 100 records in here. You could go through this and add in the numbers manually, or you may have some data missing. You may have 1 or 2 you want to add. I just want to show you Zoho Sheet View. So if I've got this view of 100 records, I can go into Actions, and I can go to Zoho Sheet View. And this allows you to do some quick updating to more than one record at a time. So let me select that. I'll get this instructions, I'll continue. There's nothing too upsetting there. And basically it's opened what looks like a spreadsheet. I'll just select this to move over. And it's showing you what data we have in the actual CRM. However, I could update data in here. Okay, and that's just doing some manual updating within Zoho Sheet View on 3 records. So I'm looking to update 3 records. If I click Save, it's saying saving up in the top right here. And once it confirms it's been saved, I can go into the CRM. So it's spreadsheet saved successfully. So effectively what I've done, I've updated 3 of these 100 records because maybe there was some missing data or I've got some extra data. But because it was only 3 records, it's not worth importing. But we don't have to go into every record to update that annual revenue field. We can do it via Zoho Sheet View. So bear that in mind if you have some quick updates to do to more than one record. If I go back to the CRM, I'll just go back to leads. I'll refresh this page. And you should see in the annual revenue field, we've now got those figures I typed in. So they're now updated. So that's been basically updated live using Zoho Sheet View. However, we've got a whole brand new spreadsheet with new data in it, a whole column of annual revenue. So I want to import that. So I'm going to import leads again. It goes through the same process. I'm going to browse for the file. And the file that I've got is called Leads Update Annual Revenue. So a nice tidy file, obviously ready. I'll click that to open. I've uploaded the file. I now need to go and map some fields. But in this case, I want to update existing leads only. And then it pops up this down here. We won't find existing leads, or we could actually do that. We could just select find existing leads based on email, but we don't necessarily have to do that. But we select don't update empty values for existing leads. And that's basically saying if this new spreadsheet has an empty blank field in it, don't overwrite any existing data that's in the CRM. So we wouldn't want to overwrite any existing data. Okay, I'm going to choose, we'll choose the email here because we do have existing leads. We know that basically it's the same spreadsheet. I've got the same spreadsheet with the same email names and addresses, or sorry, email address in there, but I'm just updating one column. So I don't want to update empty values, and I'll click next. Okay, so what you see now is we've got this annual revenue field here, but it's not recognized it, which is good. It's it does say the same. It's not in capital, so it doesn't recognize it. So I have to go in, and I can select that. Or if you had lots of fields, you could type it in and select. And then we've got a date format. It's recognized the date format it needs. Not date format, sorry, number format. And I can click next. So I'm just simply mapping one field, the brand new field. Again, it says one field isn't mapped. It's the ID field. We don't need that in this front end update. And it's been scheduled. Again, we'll just wait for this update to take place. Okay, so that's quite quick. It's done that. And again, I can select the hyperlink. And again, you can see, great, we've got some good data. It's not added any new records because they were existing. We've got 100 updated records and 0 skipped, so that's great. And as I said, if there was some skip there, you could select that and download the file. And it would also show you on here why they've been skipped in the warnings area. So you can see these numbers in here. Okay, so I'll just close that down and I will refresh this page. And now you can see all these, this column here has been updated. So everything in there, all 100 records have been updated with this new field. Okay, now I just want to do a quick test. It was a last minute thing that I did earlier. I'm just going to go and import the leads again. And I'm going to browse for a new file. And this file is called leads field new, because I've got a column in here which doesn't exist as a field already. So I'll click next. I'm going to update existing leads only, and I'm going to base it on email. So I know it's the same, again, it's the same list of individual people in the records and their email addresses. So I don't want to update any empty values. If I click next, now again, I'll just jump back. I didn't show you the actual spreadsheet. Let me open, I've not got it open, that's why. So leads field new. In here, I've got a field, now hopefully you can see it. I know it won't be great, it's a bit much. I've got a field here called application. So it's a brand new field and it doesn't exist in the CRM. Okay, so that's a new field, same data here. It doesn't have the revenue in there. But I'll go back to the CRM. So we've now got this application field, but there's no application field in there. Okay, so what I want to do is create new fields, and it's recognized there's one missing. And the application really here, I'm saying that they may be interested in a particular software application that we've got. You can choose the field type, and in here I just want it to be text. So I'll select create. Fields created successfully, and click next. And again, we don't want to map the ID field. There's an import scheduled, and we'll wait for that to happen. I'll just do a refresh. Not happened yet. I'm going to be impatient, and I'm going to go into the field here. I'm going to look for the word application. In there somewhere. Oh yeah, sorry, there it is here. So there's this new field, application. Okay, it's added in here. We could have created, it might be more wise to, in some cases, you could create a drop-down list when it would base it on the data that's in the spreadsheet. As you could hopefully see, I had some 1, 2, 3, 1 in there. I could have created a pick list, but I just created a text field to show us how that appears. So we've got this application field that's now appeared in the leads that we've got. So it's a brand new field being built in the CRM. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick drink of water before we then go on to the a back-end import where we'll import company details and some contacts. Okay, just give me a second, have a drink of water, and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, I'm unmuted again, and I just also want to add a new column in here. So you might have done this before, hopefully have. This in the last month or two, there's been some small changes to the CRM and some of the way things are done. So here we've got the managed columns in this area here. It was slightly different up until a month or two ago. So if I select managed columns, I can choose the columns I want to see based on the field names in here. And so in the view, so I want to add this application. I'll click save. And you can see that application field is now in here. So that's been created. Okay. And you can see the data that appears that was in the spreadsheet. Okay, so we want to do a back-end import. So this is where we go into setup. So the setup cog. And we go to the import field here. So if I could also just type in import. And then we go to the import, and it's showing us here. I'll just quickly look at import history as well. You can see we've been building up the imports. This is what we've done this morning already. So I'll go to import. And as you can see, we can import from some specific already existing well-known CRM. So if I wanted to select something like Salesforce, it would ask you to browse files. It does say that only CSV files are accepted here, and you can pull in these CSV files that way. Okay, but I'm just going to go back. I'm going to cancel that. We are genuinely going to use CSV files anyway, but they're not coming directly from Salesforce, and there's certain things that it can do when it knows what CRM it's coming from or the data's come from. In this case, I'm going to choose other CRM. Now that's defaulted to CSV. Sometimes you have to type that in, but this is defaulted to CSV, and that's exactly what we're going to use. We're going to use CSV file or files to import data in the back end. And then just to reiterate, the advantage here is we're importing more than one CSV file at a time, and we are able to link them or relate them. So now I want to browse the files. So I click Browse Files, and it goes to where I've got these this data to import, and we've got company backend, and we've got contacts backend. So I'm going to essentially what I'm doing here. I've already got the company name in the CRM, but I want to add contacts to them. And well, actually, in this case, sorry, these are new companies, but we could do that similarly. We've got a new company name, and we have contacts as part of that company. Let's just have a quick look at the data before I do this. So here we've got a company, and this is where we do need the ID field. So I've got two fields here, two fields that are in the CRM, company name and created date, but I've also got this ID. They just run from 1 to 100, but they're going to be vital when we match up the company to the contact. So we've got the ID here. If I just go to the contacts back end. I just push this up. You can see each contact has its own ID as well, individual ID, which they should, but they are matched to a company ID. And now, obviously, I've done a bit of work making sure in the background that this spreadsheet is nice and neat. So what you'll see here, we've got company number 46. Here we've got 2 contacts who work for that same company. So when we do the import, the idea is that these contacts will appear under that company name. So let's look for company 46. If we look further down, you can see 46 is what is called Deco Group, okay? So we want to make sure those contacts appear in that company. So let's go back to the CRM. I've selected both these, and I'm going to say open. But it's essential that we have the company as the first import and contact second, because we need the company in there before we can map the contacts to there. Okay, so just take the defaults that appear here. So we've got the file uploaded. Now we want to import it. You see this notify by email. We can untick or tick that to it will notify whoever's doing this that it's been successful. I'll click next, and then we're going through this process, processing the data. So it's importing that data, and depending on the sizes of the files, it could take some time, which is why you have the email notification. You could be off doing something else. So we'll just wait patiently. There's nothing else we can do here. Hopefully it won't take too long. I'll just keep waiting for this. Okay, so now this maybe looks a bit complex, but it really isn't. We know that we're dealing with importing a company and a contact. So we've got the company. Will be, in this case, it's our accounts module. So this is this accounts module here. So again, bear in mind what you may have renamed or named your modules to be, because I know people do have their own naming conventions and will rename some of these, so be aware of that. So the first thing we want to do, we've got the files here. We've got unmapped files, which is correct, they're not mapped. So we've got company, backend, CSV, which we looked at. I'm going to select and drop it into the accounts area. Then, so we've done that, that's the accounts. Now at the same time, I can drag and drop the contacts into the contacts module. So that's here in the middle. So I'll just drag this over and drag contacts into here. Okay, so we're now saying 100% of files, well, they're not quite mapped. So we've done this here. So we've got mapped modules 2, unmapped 27. So there's the 2, they're not quite mapped yet, but what we're saying is that we've put them in place, ready to map. Okay, so I'll click next. The next, we've done the file mapping, so that's up here in the top. We've done the module file mapping. Now we want to do the field mapping. So we click next. And it's firstly hit the accounts module, so it's telling us what the accounts module is. And now we need to map what the fields are. Okay, so what it's automatically done is the ID field in the file is automatically a map to account ID, and this is pretty much mandatory. We have to do that. And we want to do that. Company name, well, again, it's going to be again the reason it hasn't provided it because it's account name. And then we've got created date. And it's actually called created time in the module. Okay, so these are little things to be aware of, so don't panic. It's called created time, and we want to make sure the date is correct. Now if we look at the actual field in this company, oh, created time, actually no, created time in contacts. That's not there. It's not in there. We've got the date here, okay? But in the CRM, with created time, sorry, it does have a time on it. It does have the hours and minutes on it. So what we want to do is select the date, month, for year, and the hours and minutes. So that's how we want to import it. Because created time, we do want to register when it was created, and we have to do that in this back end. Okay, so the created date we're importing, but we're going to import it into a field that is formatted like this in the CRM. Okay, so that's me done those. I can assign a default value. I'm going to tag. Again, that's all I'm going to do. Company. And then now we go to the contacts. So we've done that. We've done the field mapping for the first module, accounts for the company update. Actually, I'm going to save the mapping. Sorry, I should have saved that. It did say save down in the bottom right hand side. I've got to save that mapping before it'll let me jump onto the contacts module. And again, you can see it's mapped the ID to the contact ID, which is correct, that we need to map that. First name, last name, and email. Now, the ID in the spreadsheet for the contacts was 1 to 100, but then we had the company ID, which was mixed up, and that was the one where it was, let's see, this one here. So this is the company ID field here. So we want to map that. And we're going to map that to the account ID because that is the module. If our module is called company, it would say company ID. So we want to map the company ID to the account ID, and that's going to be the thing that tells us what contact belongs to what company. Okay, so I'll click. You can see these numbers here. So there's Manda will be assigned to company 92 in the accounts CSV file. I'll click save and next. Successfully mapped. Okay, and now we're doing our review. We're happy with this. Everything looks okay. The pre-migration status, it's saying 100% of the fields are mapped, so I'm happy with this. If you weren't, you could discard it and start again, okay, on the bottom left, but then we'll start migration. Again, we'll just wait a few seconds to see. Hopefully this will appear. They may take slightly longer, but it's not large files. I'll just be patient and wait for that to happen. So we've got 100 have been added in the accounts module here. You can see the progress. We'll just keep waiting with this. And it's now jumped down to the contacts. So it's added 100, but it's still just processing the data into the CRM. And hopefully not too much longer now. Okay, great. So that's it done. So it says the migration has been completed successfully, and we can now start using the CRM. And I'll just click get started, and it'll take us into the CRM. So if I click get started, there we are back into the home page of the CRM. And you now see we've got today's leads. There's lots of them in there, lots of open tasks. So really what we want to look at is the accounts and contacts that we imported. So I'm going to go first to the accounts module. So we imported companies. And these are the companies here. There's no real, if I look down, I was going to say I might see that file name that the company name was called Deco. So I'm simply going to go to the global search, select Deco, press enter. Can do show my records only. This is part of our training here. You can see this account name here, Deco Group. I'll go into Deco Group. And I can see there's actually 3 contacts. So if I select contacts here, there's 3. There's Hayward, Shanna, and Sterling. Okay, so if we go back to the spreadsheet and it's the contacts, we can see it was company number 46, I think. Yep, so we've got Sterling and Shanna here. Sterling, Shanna, and there should be another 46 in this file there. We've got Shanna, and then we've got Hayward. Okay, so that's company 46. So when we pulled it in, the two files at once, company 46 was in this company spreadsheet here as the Deco group. Oh, yeah, actually, yeah, company 46, Deco group. And in the spreadsheet, these contacts are assigned to company number 46, and then that appears in the CRM. So we can see pretty much we're really happy and successful with this import. So it's all worked fairly well. One of the, again, big reasons is the data, before we imported it, the data was very clean and well matched. So, you know, it is well worth thinking about putting time into that, or if you've got a massive amount of data, asking a third-party company to do that. And like I said, we've got a company that we use who do that. We just put you in touch with them, that'd be fine. Okay, so that is how we've basically imported the data. We did say from other sources, but effectively, you know, it's all the CSV or spreadsheet style is the main one. As I say, we recommend CSV. And so that's really that section covered on data importing. So I've got 10 minutes left. I'm just going to stop sharing this full screen just now, and I'll go back to just sharing the application window. So I'll share that, and hopefully you can see that. I can see there's a question from Karen about importing from a single file. I would recommend you do individual files, particularly when we're doing the back-end import, because we treat it a little bit like modules. So you've got the accounts module, you've got the contacts module, and they're separate, but they're related to each other in the background. So that's where we recommend we do that import. If you're recognizing that there are two sets of data that need to be linked together, so it's best to do it in the back end. Yeah, and any individual files on top of that you can import, but yeah, I mean, normally if we do front-end imports, we usually do the company first, and we'll import the company details, and then after that we import the contact details, but make sure that company name is in that spreadsheet. Okay, thanks, Karen. Okay, so just before we finish, I'm just going to look at the rest of the data administration setup. I'm not going to go too far in depth, but I just thought, as it's the importing is part of the data administration menu, we'll look at exporting. Now here you can export data from the CRM, so that may be if you were moving, say, from another CRM to a different CRM, you could be export the data, and that's how you could create these CSV files. So this is in the back end here, and you can select the modules that you want to export. I'm not going to do that just now, but I'll just quickly click export, asking if I'm sure, and then you can, oh, I did do that. It's easy. It was easy. So because there's not many in there, so I've exported the file, and it will appear in my download folder. Okay, so that's very simple. We could do an export where you could export a full module. And the way we do that from the front end isn't quite as easy as that, but what we do is we'd go into the reports module, and we'd create a report. It would be the leads module. You may not want all the data, or you wouldn't relate it, sorry, to any other module. It would be a tabular report, and you select the fields that you want in here. It's not as good as creating a custom view. You need to go and search for them, but you may not want all the data, but you simply continue. We could run it. I'll just run it now instead of saving it. And basically you've got the full 117, there's only 117 leads in here, but you're importing that. You'd save it as a report, and you would, I'll just click save here, select the folder. I haven't said I wouldn't do it, it's just as easy to do it, and that's where you get the export here. You've got export, and we can export to Excel, CSV, and as ever I say, export to CSV, and that's downloaded it. only with the fields that I requested in that report, whereas the back-end import has downloaded the full module. Okay, so bear in mind, if the size of your module is huge, it will be a lot of data. Okay, the next thing I'll just quickly look at is data backup. We don't have a backup set up in here, but we can select backup preference. And we get in this edition there, it does vary on the editions, but we can do twice a month maximum, and that's recommended. But you can pay for extra backups, which is $10 extra if they're not part of your subscription. So we could look at that if you're not unsure. But that does a twice a month backup, and it will email the super admin of the CRM with a link to a URL which allows them to download the data. Okay, now remove sample data. I'm going to ignore that because that's what we have when you initially open a CRM. You can download sample data to play around with, which we do in the demo CRM. So here you can see we've got storage. And so this storage is here. We've got two different types of storage, data and file storage. And data is the records that we have, the numbers. You can see this record count. And as you can see, not a lot of storage is taken up, but it's always good to keep an eye on this. And you can add storage by purchasing extra storage. But that's for data, so that's your records. File storage is, again, this is where we recommend you don't use it as a file store. You can put attachments into notes and attachments into records, but if you start saving lots of information in there, it starts building up this. But you should have plenty here. Save your files on your normal file store, but any pertinent documentation to a record or a deal, etc., save them, attach them to records. Here we have the recycle bin. So you can see any stuff. I've deleted a record this morning. So you can see you've got a recycle bin. Stay there for 60 days. And we can empty the recycle bin. So I think hopefully you'll be used to doing that with other software that you may use. Then we've got the audit log here. And this tells you recent activity. So it's quite good, particularly for a super admin or the administrator, to keep an eye on what's going on. So you can see we've got these exports, the leads imported, various things going on, even down to workflows that are happening. So there's a lot of things going on. And that's why here you've got a recent activity filter. So you can choose what says entities here. It's mainly really the modules. You can choose users, or you can choose the type of actions that have been done. So added, updated, deleted, and you can actually do date ranges. So you may say, somebody may say, oh, someone's deleted a lot of data, what happened? You could try and have a look here to see what happened and who deleted it. So it's just a learning exercise to teach people how to use the CRM. Okay, so that's the audit log. All right, well, I think we've come now to a natural end now of the 1 hour workout. We did the warm-up polls. We are introduced to imports. We did the front-end import with a new leads file. We did the back-end, the updates to add a new set of information, which was annual revenue. And we also did a front-end update to add a new field from the file. Then we did the back-end import. Obviously, it was importing two files at the same time, so we could relate them together. And then we just had a very quick look at the data admin overview in the CRM. Okay, so I hope that was something that was of use to you. As ever, we've got upcoming 1 hour workouts. Next week, we're looking at a new feature called segmentation, which is something that's already in the CRM, but it's been built on by Zoho. And over the coming weeks, we'll have some breaks on a Tuesday, but these are the types of 1 hour workouts that are coming up. GDPR, scoring, approvals, and we've already done important data. I should remove that. And then move on to campaigns and sales IQ, and then blueprints. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed today, and I've really enjoyed doing it again, as ever. If you have any specific requests, whether it's for training or issues with your CRM or any Zoho product, please do message us at support. Any reviews you'd like to put on, please post on our website. and give us a follow on LinkedIn and let us know how you think we're getting on. Okay, so once again, thanks very much for your time, and I'll hopefully see you over the coming weeks. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.